Hello everyone, welcome to lecture 3 of module 3. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the different liquidity ratios related problems and their solution to make you aware how to use those ratios for decision making, and we will discuss one by one with the different examples of the same. Here I am taking up the liquidity ratios first problem. From the following information, calculate current ratio, liquid ratio and absolute liquid ratio, and the information provided is cash and bank balance rupees 10 lakh, debtors rupees 5 lakh, inventory rupees 6 lakh, marketable securities 3 lakhs, bills receivable 1 lakh, current liabilities 12 lakh. So, to solve the question, first we take up the current ratio. For that, we need the calculation of current assets, those assets which are convertible into cash within a span of 1 year. So, this is the calculation of current assets, in which first we take up cash and bank balance, which is given 10 lakh rupees. Then we have debtors, or we call it accounts receivable, amounting to rupees 5 lakhs, inventory amounting to rupees 6 lakh, marketable securities rupees 3 lakhs, and the last is bills receivable of rupees 1 lakh. So, the total of current assets is rupees 25 lakhs. And the current liabilities as given in the question is 12 lakhs. So, we have to calculate the current ratio, which is current assets upon current liabilities. Assets amounting to rupees 25 lakh divided by 12 lakh, the amount of current liabilities, which equals to 2.08 approximate. As per the rule of thumb, the current ratios rule of thumb is 2:1, which means it's satisfactory ratio. So, here we have a ratio which is more than 2. So, we have for every liability, we have 2 assets available to be disposed by the company. Moving to next, that is the liquid ratio. Now, for liquid ratio, we know the formulation is liquid assets divided by current liabilities, and liquid assets are current assets minus inventory. So, in this question, when we talk about the liquid assets, they would be 25 lakh of current assets minus inventory of rupees 6 lakh, that comes to rupees 19 lakhs. Liquid ratio will be 19 lakhs as liquid assets divided by 12 lakh of current liabilities, which comes to 1.583, which is again more than the rule of thumb, which says it should be 1:1. So, here we can interpret that with one liability we are having 1.5 times asset available in the terms of liquid assets to pay off our liabilities. And then the third one is absolute liquid ratio, which is a ratio of assets, absolute liquid assets divided by current liabilities. Now, for absolute liquid assets, we consider cash and bank balance, marketable securities. So, the total of the two comes to rupees 13 lakh. So, absolute liquid ratio will be 13 lakh, the total of cash and bank balance and the marketable securities, divided by the current liabilities of rupees 12 lakh comes to 1.083, which is again more than the rule of thumb, which says if we have 0.5, half of the current liabilities available in the terms of absolute liquid ratio, we can say that the company is having a good liquidity position. Moving on to next question. From the following balance sheet, compute the different liquidity ratios and compare with comments. We are given the particulars of 2 years, 2021 and 22, in which we are given equities and liabilities, short capital, long-term loan, trade payable and other current liabilities. The total comes to 1,30,000 for the year 21 and 160 lakhs for the total of 2022. And the assets are non-current assets, and then we have current assets like stock, debtor, cash and marketable securities. So first, to compute the different liquidity ratios, we start with the year 2021 in comparison to year 2022. First, I take up the current ratio. In year 2021, we have the current assets, stock 30 lakhs, debtors 20 lakhs, cash 30 lakhs, marketable security 10 lakhs, which comes to current assets total will be 90 lakhs. And available current liabilities in the given year is equal to 40 lakhs. So our current ratio would be 90 lakhs divided by 40 lakhs equal to 2.5. And in the year 2022, we have the current assets, stock, debtor, cash, marketable securities. Again, we have a total of 90 lakhs. And the current liabilities in that year is 45 lakhs. So our current ratio in the year 2022 would be 90 lakhs divided by 45 lakhs, which is equal to 2. So in comparison, we can see the current ratio in the year 2021 is more than the current ratio of the year 2022, but both the ratios are showing satisfactory position because of the rule of thumb. Next, we have liquid ratio, in which we will not consider for the liquid asset computation the stock value. So we are left with the total liquid assets, which is equal to 60 lakhs, mean current assets of 90 lakhs minus stock of 30 lakhs. And the current liabilities are same, equal to 40 lakhs. So the liquidity ratio in the year 2021 is 60 lakhs divided by 40 lakhs comes to the figure of 1.5. In the year 2022, similarly, the liquid assets without including the stock in the total current assets, we reach the figure of 65 lakhs. And current liabilities are 45 lakhs. So liquid ratio is 65 lakh divided by 45 lakhs comes to 1.4 approximate. Again, the figures of the 2021 showing more liquid ratio in comparison to the year 2022. Then we have absolute liquid ratio, in which we just take cash and marketable securities of the year 2021. So the total of absolute liquid assets comes to 40 lakhs and the current liabilities are also equal to 40 lakhs. So our absolute liquid ratio will be 1:1. And in the year 2022, the absolute liquid assets are equal to 40 lakhs, 20 lakh cash and 20 lakh marketable securities, and the current liabilities of 45 lakhs. So the absolute liquidity ratio is 40 lakhs divided by 45 lakhs, which is 0.88 approximately. In the whole question, after comparing the year 2021 with the 22, we can easily make out that all the current ratio, liquid ratio and absolute liquid ratio of the year is more than that of the year 2022. Moving to next, the practical problem number 3. The question says if the current ratio is 3 and the working capital is 1,20,000, calculate the current assets and the current liabilities. In this question, first we assume let the current liabilities equal to X, and given in the question working capital equal to 1,20,000. We know very well that working capital is nothing but the difference of current assets minus current liabilities. And in the question, current ratio is given 3. So, current assets upon current liabilities is equal to 3 upon 1, where the current liabilities are assumed to be X. So, we can calculate that the current assets will fall equal to 3X. So, now putting up the figure into the working capital, we calculate 3X minus X, which is equal to 1,20,000, comes to 2X equal to 1,20,000, and the value of the X would be 60,000. So, in this particular question, our current liabilities would be equal to 60,000 and current assets will be 3 times of liabilities, that comes to 3 multiplied by 60,000, total is 1,80,000. Moving to practical problem 4 of the liquidity ratios, the current assets and the current liabilities of a company is 50,000 and 20,000 respectively. How much can be borrowed without reducing the current ratio below 2? This question is for decision making purpose. As per the question, we are having the current ratio where the current assets are 50,000 and current liabilities are 10,000 falls to the 5:1. And the company has to borrow some funds without reducing its ratio below 2. So what we will do is let assume the amount to be borrowed say X. If we borrow X from the market, then our current assets after borrowing will become 50,000 plus the amount borrowed, because it adds up to our cash. And the current liabilities in the new situation will become 10,000 plus again the amount borrowed as a current liability X. So again finding out the current ratio which we want to keep up to 2, we put these new values into the equation. So we have the current ratio 50,000 plus X of the current assets divided by the liability. We found that X will reach the figure of 20,000 plus 2x, x will reach the figure of 30,000 in this case. So we can suggest that if company wants to stick to the ratio of 2, it can borrow only 30,000 from the market. Practical problem number 5. From the following extracts of a balance sheet, you are required to calculate the weighted liquidity ratios. As you know from the last lecture, that weights are given on the basis of the conversion of the assets into cash and the open market. So we assume certain weights to be assigned to the different assets as well as the liabilities. Then we compute all weighted ratios in the similar fashion. Going with these things, we first start with the calculation of weighted current assets. So the computation of weighted current assets. Here we take the particulars, mean the assets, then the values, that is the original one, then the weights, and last is weighted value of assets. In the question, we have been provided with the information of assets in the term of, first we are given stock. Then stock's value was 1 lakh rupees. Then the next current asset is a debtor, which is 1,50,000. Cash equals to 1,80,000. Marketable securities which is equal to 2,50,000, and last is bills receivable amounting to rupees 2 lakhs. Keeping in mind the conversion of the asset into cash, the cash will be given the highest weight, which can be equal to 1. And the second asset that can be easily convertible into cash is the marketable security, so we give it a weight of 0.95. Third in the category falls the bills receivable, so we give it a weight of 0.9. Then to debtors we give the weight of 0.8, and to the stock, keeping it in the last in the row, we give the weight of 0.75. So the weighted value of the stock will become 75,000, and for the debtors it become 1,20,000, and cash 1,80,000, marketable securities 2,37,500, and bills receivable 1,80,000. So the total of the current weighted current assets will be 7,92,500. Similarly, we calculate weighted current liabilities. So bills payable with the value of 50,000 can be given a weight of 0.9, first weightage, so it comes to 45,000. Then is the creditors, weighted 0.8, the value was 2,50,000 in the question, so it falls to the total of 2 lakh rupees. Then the bank loan given a value of 0.85 because it's an outside liability, so it has to be paid before the creditors to be paid. So they will be weighted on the second number, and the total comes to rupees 1,70,000. So the total weighted current liabilities in the question comes to 4,15,000. Once the weighted has been assigned, we have to compute the different ratios using the same formula but putting up the values of the weighted current assets and the weighted current liabilities. So first we compute current ratio, which is equal to weighted current assets 7,92,500 divided by the weighted current liabilities of 4,15,000, which is equal to 1.90 approx. Then weighted liquid ratio, we again won't take into the consideration the value of the stock. So we will be left, after deducting the stock value from the current assets, the amount of liquid assets will become 7,17,500 divided by 4,15,000 equal to 1.728 approximately. And the third one is weighted absolute liquid ratio, in which we just consider the cash and the marketable securities at the most liquid assets. The total of the two weights will come to 4,17,500 divided by 4,15,000 of the current liabilities, which is equal to 1.001. So here again, even after giving the weights, all the ratios are more than the standard framed by the, like 1:1, 2:1 and 0.5. So the ratio is quite satisfactory for the organization. Moving to the next problem, that is related to the liquidity. Following are the extracts of a balance sheet in which the different information like inventory, debtors, cash, creditors and bank overdraft has been provided in the question. And this is the problem you have to go for, that is, you have to calculate current and the quick ratios. Then a further bank overdraft of rupees 1 lakh against debtor is to be negotiations. Assuming that the overdraft is received, compute the revised current and quick ratio. So we calculate the question going with the part A. In this question, our current assets total is including inventory, debtors, cash and 3 items. It falls to total of rupees 10 lakh. So current ratios will be the total of current assets, that is 10 lakh, divided by the current liabilities, creditors and bank overdraft, total 7,50,000, it comes to 1.33. Second, we have to calculate the quick ratio, or we can call it a liquid ratio. Quick ratio. Again, we have to deduct the amount of the inventory. So we will be left with the liquid assets of 4 lakh to be compared with the current liabilities of 7,50,000. It comes to 0.533. In the part B, there is a consideration for a company available that it can have a bank overdraft of rupees 1 lakh against the debtors, assuming that the overdraft is received. If overdraft is received, means it leads to the addition to the current assets by 1 lakh. So the new current assets will be become 10 lakh plus new overdraft of 1 lakh, total is 11 lakh rupees inclusive of overdraft. Similarly, our revised current liabilities, which were 7,50,000, will also increase by 1 lakh and the total become 8,50,000. So now the revised current ratio would be 11 lakh divided by 8,50,000 comes to 1.29, and the liquid or the quick ratio will be 5 lakh divided by 8,50,000 equal to 0.588 approximately. Case 3. There is also a negotiation is going on for discounting the debtors of rupees 3,50,000 for 3,20,000 to a collection agency for immediate cash, and the obsolete stock worth rupees 1 lakh being sold for rupees 75,000. Of the cash to be realized from the true transaction, the bank overdraft is proposed to be reduced to 1,50,000. Mean we have to compute once again the revised current assets in the third part would be inventory. Out of inventory, 1 lakh has been to be reduced because that is an absolute, but 75,000 has been recovered. So the inventory here will be 6 lakh. Out of that, 1 lakh is to be deducted for the obsolescence, but the value of 75,000 is to be added. So this 75,000 will go into the cash balance. So the stock here left with 5 lakh. This 75,000 we will add to the cash available in the company. That cash which was given 50,000 have an addition of 75,000 from the inventory plus 3,20,000 that we realized from the debtors. So the total cash will be a figure of 4,45,000. And the other assets, now the debtors will no more be in the existence. So the current assets will become 8,45,000 after considering all this deductions in inventory, in the debtors value and addition in the cash. So this current ratio will be 8,45,000 divided by the current liabilities, because we have already reduced the bank overdraft to 1,50,000. So the current liabilities in the current situation will become 5 lakh plus 1,50,000 is 6,50,000, which will result into the current ratio of 1.3. For further moving for the quick ratio without considering the stock, now we are having a liquid assets amounting to rupees 3,45,000 after the deduction of 5 lakh from the current assets. 3,45,000 divided by 6,50,000 of the current liabilities, the figure we reach is 0.53. This is going to be our new ratios after assuming both the cases, if we go with the B case and then if we go for the C case. All the part we solved are independent of each other. With this, we come to an end for this lecture. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.